folks, today I'm with ElGhali specialist solution architect at Databricks, and he will help us understand how we can configure data sharing protocol when the workspace is hidden behind a firewall. Hi Ghali,
Hello, Youssef. How are you doing?
introduce yourself. And yes, I'm doing very well.
Great. My name is ElGhali Ben Shikroun, and I'm what we call specialist solutions architect. So I mainly help within the organization, the solutions architect, to deal with security, cloud infrastructure, or also cloud architecture challenges for our customers. So I mainly help customers on those topics. And today, my goal is also to explain you how to deal with security challenges when working with data sharing.
My first question is, can you maybe introduce quickly what's data sharing?
Yeah. So delta sharing is an open protocol first. So delta sharing is composed of three main parts. First part, delta sharing server that implement open APIs. Second, delta sharing client in which you have the possibility to read the data exposed by a delta sharing server within any kind of platform. And third, a delta sharing protocol in which we specify APIs in order to make sure that we have the possibility to share data from what we call a consumer from a provider, to a consumer without having to replicate this data. And all the capabilities of this open protocol is mainly based on non-replication of the data. So within the Databricks platform, you have the possibility to share any kind of tables, any kind of Unity catalog objects without having to replicate your data by using some specific protocols or specific technologies of the cloud provider. For example, on AWS, by relying on pre-signed URLs, for example.
Okay, which means I can share tables, volumes, models, maybe federated databases.
Exactly.
That's amazing. And do I need to have a compute always on to share the data?
No, definitely not. Basically, all the traffic is first built by using what we call creating a trust relationship between what we call a provider and a consumer. So first, what you will have to do is, as a provider, creating a share and then specify this share, the target of this share. This target can be on Databricks, another Databricks workspace, within another Databricks organization, or within the same organization, but in another cloud region. Or you also have the possibility to share data to any other kind of clients. In that case, for the first approach, it will be what we call Databricks to Databricks sharing. And when we want to share any kind of Databricks asset, for example, table to other consumer, in that case, we call it as Databricks to other.
Okay. And my main question is like, okay, you talked about pre-signed URLs, but what happens if my storage account is behind a firewall? How can I benefit from the data sharing protocol?
Yeah, let's go into more in details into this diagram to understand what happened under the hood when you try to access to a shared table within data sharing. So as I said, as a data provider, I have the possibility to share the data to a data recipient. In that case, trust relationship is built between the data provider and the data recipient. Then when the recipient or the consumer want to access to some data, the client will first just try to query the shared table by doing a request. First, the request will be controlled by seeing if the user has the right permission to access the data and also is authenticated. If it's the case, the request is audited and saved into audit tables. After that, the delta sharing table create what we call a pre-signed short-lived URL. Then after that, the delta sharing client has the possibility to access the data that is shared to him directly by accessing the files in the object store. Meaning that when I want to access to some data that is stored within an object store, the communication that you will have to set up is between your data sharing client and the underlying object store. In that case, if my object store, for example, my S3 bucket or my storage account is behind the firewall, I will have to create a private endpoint, VPC endpoint, whitelist the subnet and or the VNet of my client in order to access to the underlying storage and access to the data.
And how can I implement this?
Okay, so in order to implement that, I will share with you a diagram that will present you practically in terms of networking how we can implement that. So if you see my screen here, you will see that in order to access to the data, first you have the possibility to directly, as a consumer, to access the data directly. So as I said, in order to access to a shared table, the consumer will need first to request the data to the data sharing server and Unity catalog server in order first to authenticate the user, check the permission, and then generate the pre-signed URL. If your compute is part of a Databricks workspace standard compute, in that case, what you will need to do is just to set up a private endpoint directly into your storage. If you have different Databricks compute within different VNets, you also have the possibility also to set up a proxy that will be the central part of your layer in order to make sure that you only have to specify one private endpoint and all the traffic is passing through this proxy. Then you will have just to set up as many private endpoints as you want. If you don't want to set up a proxy, you will now have to create one private endpoint per client. For example, if I have multiple workspaces, in that case, I will need one private endpoint per each workspace. If I want to access that only through an appliance, for example, a proxy, in that case, I just have to specify only one proxy, one private endpoint for the proxy. And in that case, I will have to specify within my client some Spark configuration in order to proxify all the requests to pass through this proxy. If you want to use serverless, you also have the possibility to configure what we call network configuration connectivity. And the setup is exactly the same, but at the Databricks serverless level. So in that case, your compute plane will be a serverless compute plane. You will have to create an NCC that will be within our environment and that will access directly to the underlying storage that is associated to your shared table.
Okay, I think you made things clearer now. And I guess, folks, if you want to deploy or benefit from data sharing when you're using VPN, like a private network for your workspace, you know what to do. And we will add the documentation in the description of this video. Anything to add, ElGhali?
To be honest, I'm really excited by first all the implementation that we are currently doing using data sharing, and I'm pretty sure that we have more and more also exciting announcements to come with data sharing to make sure that our protocol is more open but also more performant and open to all to make sure that the networking configuration is easier to set up when dealing with data sharing. So yeah, keep yourself posted for the future announcement. See you. Bye.